You are not a person. Let that sink in. You are not a person. Now, this isn't some idea I just made up, so don't click away just because I've had too much to drink. How'd you even know that, by the way? Doesn't matter. Listen, this is not an idea I just made up. I'm quoting the Buddha, for Christ's sake. I'm paraphrasing. You know what was that realization, that great awakening, when the Buddha suddenly woke up for the first time? It's like everybody's walking around asleep and then you can wake up. Makes me think of when you're asleep and you're in the middle of a dream and suddenly you realize you're dreaming. That's only happened to me a few times in my life. Other people say it happens all the time and they can control it. Lucid dreaming. But will you just think about that idea? The idea that you can be dreaming and you're in the middle of the dream, experiencing the dream, and then you suddenly remember your real life outside the dream, your larger overarching life, the real you. You're having this dream where maybe you're a bunny running across a field being chased by a hyena. Do hyenas even eat bunnies? In this dream, the hyena is trying to eat the bunny and you're the bunny and you're hopping across the field. But then there's a moment when you realize it's a dream and you know exactly where you are in your bed and you're still half awake, half asleep and running from the hyena. You ever look up what was the insight of the Buddha? What is it that made Buddhism become a thing? It used to be Hinduism. You know, the person called Buddha had a background in Hinduism, and one of the concepts in Hinduism was Atman, A-T-M-A-N. That's something that we translate to mean like soul. And when you look up what was the realization of the Buddha, you find out he says there is no Atman. There's no individual Atman. It's like, I realized we don't have a soul. That sounds terrible. So of course people don't understand it correctly. I have heard a lot of people talk about Buddhism being something very hopeless and despondent. People totally misunderstand it. It's not that at all. It's some good news. It's very good news. We need to think again about the assumption that underlies philosophical materialism, the philosophy that believes in the primacy of material, the idea that physical matter is what existed first. We need to think again about that. From that materialist perspective, the person is a temporary arrangement of things. Like if you have a bunch of stones and you arrange them into the shape of something, that doesn't mean that something is there. You got a bunch of raw material arranged in a particular way. Here's how to understand the Buddhist insight that there's no individual Atman, there's no individual soul. You start with philosophical idealism, which is the idea that mind is the thing that exists. You know, we have this mystery. How is it that anything exists? The first law of thermodynamics is within any system you can't create energy, you can't destroy energy. But here we are, a whole lot of energy spontaneously existing in the universe. What caused that? We don't believe in God. We're modern people. We believe in science. So we don't think some God created everything. So what created it? Prior to the Big Bang, what the hell created the laws of physics? You can't just ignore that crazy mystery. Seriously, it does not make sense. You think nothingness produces all this stuff? Some scientists are talking about nothingness is impossible because of the nature of reality, whatever. The thing is, the nature of reality precluding nothingness, the fact that the nature of reality is anything at all raises the question, how the crap is anything happening? Why isn't it just actually nothing happening? All this is happening. So the nature of reality is that there's no such thing as nothing, and there's this raw material, and most modern people believe that material just mysteriously started existing in the universe. They just take it for granted, like, okay, it's material. It's hard to understand philosophical idealism because you have to try to wrap your mind around the idea that you are like that bunny in a dream running through a field trying to escape from a hyena or a leopard or something. It's hard to wrap your mind around the idea that everything you see around you is projected by the mind. But that's it. That's the idea. Philosophical idealists think mind is the only thing that exists. Idealists don't think the brain is the mind. They think the brain is just one of the many things dreamed up by the mind. It's an old idea and it's a very misunderstood idea. The idea that the thing that started existing without being caused by anything else, it's called the first cause in philosophy. The thing that started existing was not necessarily material. It wasn't necessarily physical matter that started existing. More accurately, the materialist assumption is that photons, the small unit of light, photons started existing, and then somehow they decay into particles and antiparticles. And then there's a whole lot of cause and effect chain reaction that leads to everything critters with complicated brains so they can have a mind and self-awareness and the will to live. The idealist assumption is different. It's the assumption that the one thing that we know for sure exists is the thing that started existing. It's a more elegant assumption. It adheres to Occam's razor, the principle that you should look for the simplest explanation for things. René Descartes famously noticed that he can't be sure of anything except the fact that he exists. as some kind of an entity that is having this thinking experience right now, trying to think about something that he can come up with that is beyond all doubt, something that is so certain that he can't doubt it. And the only thing he comes up with is he says, I think, therefore I am. And the observation he's making is that there's no way to know anything with absolute certainty except for just this one thing, which is that I'm having this subjective experience right now. I exist in some way as some kind of an entity that is having this experience right now. So when you're dreaming about being a bunny hopping through a field as fast as you can, trying to escape from the leopard or the hyena, you think, oh no, this hyena is gonna eat this bunny, and I am this bunny, and this bunny's brain is the source of my consciousness, my sentient experience, my life. But that's completely incorrect. I don't know if you wake up first or if the leopard gets you and then you wake up, whatever. But you wake up and you say, oh, okay, wait a minute. It's possible to look around and see a whole world of stuff all around you and then find out it was just something projected by the mind, some experience for you to have. You know, and then as a modern person, you go back to assuming that the mind is the brain and the brain came up with the dream somehow. But if there's anything you take away from this thing I'm saying to you today, it's that you do not have to be stuck with the assumption that physical matter is what started existing in the universe. Obviously, that doesn't make sense. And scientists hope we'll be able to figure it out, but actually you can start with the other assumption and try to figure it out from there. Don't be thinking that physical matter existed and then it evolved until it became critters like you and me. You can try to start your thinking with the assumption that mind is what existed first, and if that's how it is, then let's go back to this insight from the Buddha. There's no individual Atman. Imagine this thinking entity, this mind, and has to cope with its own existence. Existing for 1,000,000 years, 1,000,000,000 years, 1,000,000,000,000 years, in just one form like this person you're being now, it would become hell. It would become hell after probably 1,000 years living on this little stupid planet. Earth is awesome for the first 1,000 years. After that, it started to get old. Try 1,000,000 years, or way more than that. Nah, you can't deal with that. You gotta have an experience like what we have right now. You'll be over there, I'll be over here, I'll die in a few decades, you will too, maybe sooner. Imagine just keeping things the same forever. Like, think about what forever is. But if we really go on and on, we would need that to happen in a way that wouldn't become this nightmarish torture. The torture that we would be experiencing if you had to just live on this little planet as this person for infinity. The idea that there is no individual soul is another way of saying all consciousness is one, the oneness of things. That's common to a lot of spiritual traditions. And physics is in accord with it because, like I was talking about before, there's one raw material, essentially. Everything is one raw material. And when some of that raw material rises up into the world as this person that you are being, it's still part of that same burst of raw material. Think about the idea that a non-physical mind could be the thing that exists. You know, the universe is an explosion. Tiny particles seem to flash in and out of existence. We have this thing called the observer effect that we're finding out, depending on whether you're looking at something or not, its behavior is different. Subatomic particles, everything seems crazy like a dream. The more advances we make in modern physics, the more reality seems like a funny, implausible dream that you're having where you arrive at work and you have no pants on and you say, oh no, how can I hide because I have no pants on? And it never occurs to you during your dream that it doesn't make sense realistically that you would have gone to work with no pants on. But in your dream, it seems normal. In your dream, it seems normal that the universe is an explosion and the expansion of the universe is increasing faster and faster and faster. Yeah, perfectly normal, right? No, that's dream logic. The reason we tend to think that we are these people we are being is because we can control the people, and then there's the external world around us that we can't control. I control me. I can walk around. I can do all these things. I can't control all the other stuff that goes on around me. This is me. All that stuff is not me. But that's the wrong understanding. You can only control about 10% of what your body does. All your metabolism, all that cell division going on, all these processes going on, you have no control over that stuff. The manufacturing of hormones and blood cells and everything else going on in your body right now is being handled without any supervision by you. It's happening by itself, exactly like the clouds that move across the sky over your head. You look outside of the external world, you see the trees blowing in the wind, you see the clouds moving across the sky, you think that's the stuff that's not me. I don't control that. Meanwhile, the central nervous system is activating hundreds, thousands of bodily processes in response to environmental stimuli. The heart keeps beating without your help. And when something happens to injure the body, it magically heals. Spontaneous regeneration, like you're a Marvel action hero or Terminator 2. You have all these things going on that are totally outside your control within the body. This person that you think you are. You're not the person. Now go to the other side. Look at those clouds passing by overhead, the trees blowing in the wind. Look at the whole external world, all that stuff that you think is not you. You can exert some control over that stuff by getting up and taking action. And you can exert some control over the stuff in your body. They're the same. The world is your body. Doesn't matter if you're paying attention. The heart keeps beating. Doesn't matter if you're paying attention. The tide goes out, it comes back in. Doesn't matter if you're paying attention. The body maintains a consistent body temperature, adapting to all kinds of environmental circumstances. It doesn't matter if you're paying attention. The train is going to arrive at 2 p.m. And here's what Alan Watts said. He said, most people talk about their lives like they say, I came into this world. When I came into this world, my life began. And he said, that's not accurate. You didn't come into this world, you grew out of it. He even pointed out that it would be easier to understand if you were rooted to the ground like a tree. Then maybe you'd understand. My favorite quote by Alan Watts is when he said, this planet peoples the way an apple tree apples. So good news, you little leaf. Being a leaf means you're a whole tree. Congratulations. That leaf is going to be completely disintegrated. Good thing you're not that leaf. Good thing you're not that bunny hopping through the field trying to get away from the leopard or the hyena. This is not some kind of religious idea. It's just the simple observation that the primacy of mind is just as plausible as the primacy of matter. The possibility that a non-physical mind, a thinking entity that dreams up this world, is what started existing, is just as plausible as the materialist assumption that material magically began existing and evolved until it developed brains that could make the mind. I think mind is something non-physical that dreams up this whole world, and it dreams up this person I'm being. One of the quotes I quote the most is Eckhart Tolle in his second book, in a chapter that's titled, the chapter title is, You Are Only Free When You Know That You Are Not the Person. I think I'm saying that right. And he said, the dreamer is not the person. The person is part of the dream. The dreamer is not the bunny hopping through the field trying to get away from the leopard. The bunny is part of the dream.